Good evening and welcome to the third episode of Guess Who, the Ohio State University's STEM game show brought to you by the STEM Impact Collaborative. I'm Courtney and I'm going to be your host tonight. We have a few short announcements before we get started to make sure that all of our attendees have the best experience possible. We've enabled the automatic captioning feature in Zoom, so you can toggle that on and off as you need to throughout the program. And speaking of the program, it's interactive and we definitely want to hear from you. So your opportunities to participate will be by answering polls, posting and upvoting questions, and sharing your witty banter in the chat. How do you do this? We'll share the polls when the time is right and you can submit your answers. If you have questions for the contestants or the guessers, please submit those using the Q&A box. Other attendees will be able to see your questions and upvote the ones they want to see answered. Another way to interact is through the chat function. If you have any logistical problems, please note those in the chat and someone from our behind the scenes team will come to your rescue. Also, please feel free to add all of your witty banter there. Okay, this is a BYOB event, which means you're in charge of your own beverages, bites, and bathrooms. So hopefully you remember where all of those things are. All right, before we go on, though, we would like to acknowledge that the land the Ohio State University occupies is the ancestral and contemporary territory of the Shawnee, Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, Peoria, Seneca, Wyandot, Ojibwe, and Cherokee peoples. Specifically, the university resides on land ceded in the 1795 Treaty of Greenville and the forced removal of tribes through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. We want to honor the resiliency of these tribal nations and recognize the historical contexts that have and continue to affect the indigenous peoples of this land. Okay, now for our game show. So Guess Who is a fast-paced game where two guessers will solve a number of challenges related to the work of three mystery researchers. You two can play along at home and help nudge our guessers in the right direction. There'll be 3 rounds of competition this evening, followed by a short Q&A with our researchers. So let me introduce our two fabulous guessers. Go ahead and turn on your cameras and join me on screen. And so I'd like to welcome 2 of my favorite human beings. We have my friend and former boss, Donald Roxy, and my fabulous colleague, Dr. Teddy Chao. So if you want to start by telling us about yourself for like a minute, Donald.
Sure. My name is Donald Roxy. I am a facilitator with a company called No Innovation. It's KNOW, works better written down. And I facilitate scientific innovation workshops around the world. And yet I know absolutely nothing about any of these 3 topics. So I'm super excited to learn today.
Awesome. All right. And Teddy, how about you?
Hi, I'm Teddy Chao, Associate Professor of STEM Education here at Ohio State University. And I don't facilitate science events all over the country, but I am a big fan of anything that has to do with science and math and STEM. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen today.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, it has to be said that we've given Teddy and Donald the least amount of information possible to make this game more fun for the rest of us. So, all right. So our competitors, our guessers tonight are competing for bragging rights. No more, no less. They're good sports and they're here to have a good time. Our tonight's game, to make it work, we have searched deep into the heart of Ohio State University to find 3 different researchers from very different fields who are willing to play along with our shenanigans. So I'm now going to invite our 3 contestants to join us on screen. All right, we have our guests. So welcome to Ashley, Claire, and JL. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to hear from our three contestants throughout the game. So let's start with a little bit of small talk first. And I want to start by asking each of you to tell us what the most exciting thing you've done over the last 6 months is. And that's particularly challenging considering our current pandemic lifestyle. But Ashley, do you want to go first? What's the most exciting thing you've done in the last 6 months?
I would say starting grad school is one of the most exciting things. I graduated undergrad in December of 2020 during the pandemic, so I didn't expect to jump right back into school that quick. So definitely a lot to do and a lot going on, but very exciting.
So you graduated and restarted both during the pandemic. That is pretty exciting.
Yes, graduated in my living room. Woohoo!
All right, Claire, what is your most exciting thing?
Probably in the last 6 months, I did the most extreme hike I've ever done in my life up in the Sierra Nevadas in California. I didn't quite make it to the mountain peak, but I made it to 13,000 feet elevation, which is like a personal record for me. I was breathing very hard.
That's awesome. How long did that hike take you?
It took longer than we were planning. It was a multi-day hike, so we made it about less than halfway the first day, 5 or 6 miles, and then it took us about 7 miles to get out.
Awesome. And JL, how about you?
Well, I started writing poetry again. Specifically, I started writing comedy poetry and reading it at open mic nights, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. You guys have had a much more exciting 6 months than I have to say. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we're going to get down to business now. And as I said earlier, tonight's show features 3 rounds of competition. Round 1 is called A Truth and 2 Lies. Round 2 is called What Is It? And round 3 is called Draw It. If you have attended other episodes of Guess Who, you might recognize a few of those games, and we have one new one tonight. I will explain how each one works right before the round starts. So let's get started with round 1. And again, that's called A Truth and 2 Lies. All right, so I mentioned that our 3 researchers are from very different disciplines. Our team has boiled down their complex topics related to their field into a single word. So in this round, our guessers will each get to ask one question related to each topic, and our contestants will answer every single question. So if a contestant is answering a question that is about their actual field, about their topic, they have to answer truthfully. But if they're answering about a different topic, they are welcome to lie and to do it as convincingly as possible. So follow along at home and feel free to use the Q&A to suggest questions for the guessers to ask our contestants. And now I'm going to reveal our 3 topics. They are tomatoes, cities, and wildfire. So again, we're going to have 3 rounds of questions, and in each one, our guessers will be able to ask one question. So our first topic that we're going to ask about is the topic of tomatoes. And I'm going to have Donalyn ask the first question.
Awesome. That would happen. All right, Teddy, let's go. Okay, tomatoes. What is it about tomatoes that you are so wildly passionate about you have decided to spend your life's work?
Okay, good question. Wildly passionate about tomatoes. Let's have Ashley answer this one first, and we'll mix up the order of the answers as we go along. So Ashley.
No, yeah, I think tomatoes just are interesting with the fact that, is it a fruit? Is it a vegetable? There's so many different things that can, decide that, or social conceptions and information about that. So I just think it's very interesting. I mean, to see the history of it, where it comes from, the molecular makeup, all that good stuff.
Okay, great answer. So let's move on to JL and see what he has to say.
So tomatoes are a model species, not like on a runway necessarily, but more like on a scientific runway, I would say. There's lots of like resources in tomatoes that makes it easy to study them. And I love like the drama and the rumors behind tomato. It makes them fun to talk about. But really it's the resources, and like there's like a lot of different researchers across the globe studying tomatoes all at the same time in different aspects. And also people eat them. So like if you're interested in studying like the nutritional components of tomatoes, like they're in people's diets all the time. And whether it be like fresh tomatoes or in like spaghetti sauce or pizza sauce.
I'm sorry, I can't get over the runway of science. Like my brain stopped listening at that point because it was the best. I can't wait to read some of your comedy poetry. Okay, and last but not least, Claire, can you tell us what makes you wildly passionate about tomatoes?
So tomatoes are actually really interesting from the perspective of genetic history. The first genetically modified organism that was allowed on the consumer market was the flavor saver tomato. It was developed in the 1960s. It was actually developed by my alma mater, where I went to undergrad, UC Davis. So kind of knowing that history of the flavor saver tomato and how we can modify crops for consumer consumption to make them last longer, to make them healthier, to make them taste better. Like, how could you not be excited about making like food just better, you know?
Awesome. Okay, very good answers. I'm not sure that anyone gave it away quite yet. So Teddy, let's see if you can tease out our liars with your question.
Thank you. So now I ask a question about cities or wildfires. Is that right?
No, we're still on tomatoes. You
Oh,
get
we're
a
still on
tomato
tomatoes.
question. Mhm.
Oh, okay. We're still sticking to tomatoes. I love it.
Yeah, you each get a question for each topic.
Okay. So my question is, I guess about tomatoes as a part of our modern agricultural system, right? Like I know that the tomatoes that I eat at the grocery store, that I get from the grocery store are really the tomatoes that are most commercially are most easily produced commercially, right? But what about the history of tomatoes sort of within like our modern ecosystem and the ways that we connect to farming and eating?
Okay, so let's start with JL on this one.
So I would say one of the biggest impacts in how we experience tomatoes as consumers is how they get from the farm to the table. This depends on a couple things. It depends on the type of tomato. So like there's two main types of tomatoes: fresh market tomatoes and processing type tomatoes. Fresh market ones are picked green and they're gassed with ethylene once they arrive at their location. And so they don't spend as much time with the mother vine, so they're not as flavorful. Whereas processing tomatoes are like a totally different kind of tomato. They're like hard. Like if you were to throw a fresh market tomato, you would get like the classic response of it like exploding all over you. But like if you throw someone with like a processing type tomato, it like hurts. And so the reason of that is because like the water content is different, the sugars are different, acids are different. There's a lot about like the actual composition of the tomato that's different, and those are used to make ketchup, salsas, and things like that. So I think that critical difference between fresh market and processing type tomatoes is a good example of how our farm to table and our products are like product focused, like product develop or consumer focused product development in tomatoes has like kind of become part of our culture.
All right, awesome. So what I took from that is if I'm going to use a tomato as a weapon, I want to make sure it's a processing tomato.
Yes.
Absolutely. I took that as well.
Yes. We're learning so many good things tonight. All right, let's go next to Claire and hear your answer.
So if I understand, the crux of the question is about sort of our analysis of the role tomatoes play in kind of contemporary society, contrasted to maybe the role they played historically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and connected
totally,
to
that is totally what Teddy meant.
No, I think that's a great question, because tomatoes are such an important crop in like modern diets, both in America and internationally speaking. They are really interesting because they're one of the few crops that you buy in the store where we still have a huge variety available in the store. If you think about like melons, you buy like a cantaloupe, but we have Roma tomatoes, there's beefsteak tomatoes, and all of those have been heavily modified for a consumer market. But what's interesting is that there's still that kind of historical heirloom tomato, which there's been a relatively recent resurgence in consumer interest in kind of these heirloom varieties, which is good both from a consumer perspective. People like a diversity of choices in what they consume, but it's also good from a perspective of kind of tomato resilience to be able to have these genetic pools that we can draw from in the future as, as climate changes, soil changes, as growing changes, and as consumer demand changes. It's really interesting to think that as much as we've designed tomatoes for human consumption, ultimately the saving grace of tomatoes is that original repository before we even started kind of touching them with our modern tools.
That's awesome. Very interesting. JL, or I'm no, sorry, we started with JL this time. Let's go to Ashley.
The process of tomatoes from the past time to modern times really kind of deals with the ionization of the molecules in the tomatoes. So science kind of has this, the modern science has this down to, I'm going to say down to a science, my bad, has this down to a science, literally is being able to predict juiciness, the color, all these things are able to be predicted by scientists all the time. Back in the day, you weren't able to really do that unless you have to wait for the harvest time and look at the plowing or the different things with agriculture. But modern times make that process easier. So you can just kind of tell. And it's one of the easiest crops nowadays versus having to, go with genetic modification or things like that.
Okay, very good. So I think Donalyn and Teddy, you have your work cut out for you to figure out who our truth tellers are. So we're going to move on to topic 2, and that is cities. So in this round, Teddy, you get the first answer, and we'll have Claire be the first respondent. So what is your question about cities?
Thank you. I have so many questions about cities. So I'm originally from New York City, and I just went back there. And maybe it's living in Ohio for so long, but I'm just sort of shocked at how inefficient a place like New York is, and also just how expensive it is, and right, just how everything seems to be a minor annoyance. So my question is about the future of cities. I see, it seems to me like cities are growing, and there are more and more people flocking into cities. But what's something that we should all know about city living that can help us sort of mitigate and help make cities better?
Okay, so how are we to make cities of the future better, Claire?
Yeah, so this is something I'm really passionate about. I think one of the major things that influences the footprint of cities, which subsequently influences how we interact and live in cities, is definitely zoning laws and zoning policy. In the United States, most areas that we live in have been zoned exclusively for single family housing, which is housing for just one family. Think like a single detached house. And this is pretty unique. This is not necessarily what happens in a lot of countries that have like a similar development history to the United States. It kind of inevitably leads to sprawl, which means that a lot of these things that make cities better, public transportation, walkable communities, can't be sustained. Things are just too spread out. So not only have we zoned for single family zoning, we've also zoned to keep our things separate. Your housing, your industry, your commercial businesses, they all happen in different places, which means necessarily you can't just walk to the shop right next door. The shop is in the commercial zone. So to make cities more livable, I think we need to make them denser and we need to make them more mixed, change up our zoning in kind of that two-dimensional way.
Okay, let's move
Thanks.
to Ashley now and see, Ashley, what are your viewpoints on this?
The future of cities, in my opinion, lies in listening to the people and studying the culture of the people in the space there. A city like New York is known to be fast, to have a lot going on, to have, I think, different forms of like entertainment, different kinds of people, and it's just big lights, big city, and we just know New York is New York. So definitely for sustaining the future of it is listening to the people, following the trends, looking at the density of the space and how we can have multifunctional spaces, or like the pandemic is showing us, maybe how we can try to have a work and a home and a shopping and like a commercial, all those spaces in one space, as well as listening to the culture of what the people like and how they interact. So it lies in communicating and working with and designing with the people and not having an expert, I guess, opinion, maybe coming from the outside, and just really trusting the experts of lived experience over, I guess, anything else. That would be my best guess.
I love that, testing the experts of lived experience. So many times we overlook that expertise. All right, and let's finish up this question with JL.
I certainly resonate with the responses so far, and I want to really build on like Ashley's point of of the lived experience and how that can best be captured and how that can best be like efficiently and effectively utilized to like build up infrastructure in a city. And so that is mostly done through city government. And so I really think that the rural governments are becoming more and more important in cities, both big and small. Even comparing like Columbus to New York, for example, or even more rural areas, city governance is becoming like really critical in making sure that people have access to the resources that they need in an affordable way, and that they can reach them effectively as well.
Okay, thank you. So we are halfway through our questions. We have 3 questions left, and I am loving the detailed answers and all of the expertise that our contestants are sharing with us. But I just looked at the time, and so I want to make sure that we don't run out of time for any of our activities tonight. So we'll start making our responses a little briefer, and I'll quit interjecting quite so much. So for this question, again, the topic is cities, and we're going to have Donalyn ask the second question.
Okay, so I think since Teddy went to the future, I'll go to the past. So what is something that we've learned in the past 18 months? We've had COVID, we've had elections, we've had all kinds of things happening in big cities. What's a key takeaway that we've learned in cities in the last 18 months?
All right, let's start with Ashley this time.
I think the past 18 months have made people like wake up, maybe get more realistic and more in tune with their more humanistic side of things. So there really is just a space, whether you create that in your home, in your community, or if the government creates it for you, just for gathering, for interacting. And even though the pandemic has messed that up, even if it's a virtual space, just really crafting and creating any kind of space that can be experienced by people, I think, so we can try to fill that void or just keep those connections strong, even if you can't personally meet, or even if you can, it's important either way.
That's a great answer. I can say that I don't think Guess Who, our fabulous game show, would exist if it weren't for the pandemic. We needed to create a space for people to come together and have a good time, hopefully. JL, what are your thoughts on this?
So my mind immediately went to our neighbors, because even though we might not reach out physically to our neighbors, we've certainly reached out more virtually to our neighbors. We see this a lot in like apps that bring people together based on location. So Yik Yak has become popular again. So we've really seen a resurgence in which people can make posts about opinions or thoughts or neighborhood business. And it's like GPS based. And then Next Door Neighbor as well, which is an app where people can report things happening in the neighborhood, like yard sales or like alleged crime, things like that. And so a lot of these apps have really like both become more popular and become more prevalent in like household use, even among like middle-aged people, which I think is really interesting. Middle-aged and like older individuals as well. I actually moved twice during the pandemic, and my Next Door Neighbor app was a great way to connect with the neighborhood and feel like I was at home and like welcomed, even though I wasn't physically seeing my neighbors as much.
That's great to have a way to connect. I do not envy you for having moved twice during the pandemic, however. All right, and so Claire, we'll wrap up this round with your response to Donalyn's question.
Yeah, I'll keep this really short. So one thing that we've learned from the past 18 months is an urban planning tool that we already knew existed called Slow Streets. Effectively, in order to create more outdoor spaces, a lot of cities were blocking off streets that were already like not very important thoroughfares for traffic anyways. You block them off, you make them pedestrian only, you slow them down. It gives people a lot more outdoor space where they wouldn't have had it, and helps like remove cars, which kind of create local air pollution and can ruin the sense of place for a city anyways. So that's a cool tool that I think is going to proliferate more in the post-pandemic world.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to move on to our third and final topic in this section, and that's wildfire. And Donalyn, in this round, you get the first question.
Okay. I just did a workshop actually on wildfire, but I didn't get to pay attention to any of the content. But I do know that one of the questions that was super kind of interesting for people was around the predictability of wildfire. So I would love to know from you, what processes might we need to develop to better predict wildfire? like we predict weather.
Okay. And we're going to start with JL on this one.
I love your question, Donald. You've actually already answered it. We're using models based on weather patterns to be able to gauge risk in certain areas for wildfires, and as that changes throughout the season. A key word there is risk and risk management. It's something that's really, really difficult to do and requires a lot of like modeling, a lot of like Bayesian statistics and other like predictive, like linear regression type models to be able to give people accurate projections for like when they think a wildfire may occur. And it's less about like when it will occur, it's more about the why as well. So like, it's not really time based, it's more about conditions. And time is like correlated to different conditions. So it's a little messy, I guess I would say. But using data like weather data, I think is certainly like very essential to predicting when wildfires will occur.
Okay. And how about Claire? What's your response?
Yeah, so it's hard to know when exactly wildfires will occur because you can know the conditions that lead to extreme fire behavior, which is going to be things like the weather, as JL talked about. That's going to be like one of the big main drivers, and we can forecast near-term weather. We also know that fire behavior is dependent on the kinds of trees and plants out there. Some of them just burn more than others, and also topography. You know, fire goes faster uphill than downhill. But as far as when fires start, that's a really difficult question to ask because most fires are started by people, you know, leading their campfire, oops, there goes my cigarette or whatever. And so that crux, that human crux, is really, really hard to predict. So it's less of when they're going to start and more of what they do once they start.
I'm going to be putting a lot of thought into the fact you said that fire moves uphill faster than it moves downhill. Okay. That is not anything I've ever thought about before. Thank you for sharing that. And Ashley, what is your answer?
It all really depends on air quality, pollution in the air, the temperature of the air, global warming. All these things interact together, and they really are the things that keep wildfires growing. Back in the past, there definitely wasn't. There have been wildfires, but it wasn't as drastic because the air conditions were different. And you know, aerosols, sprays, people love their products, and it gets in the air, and everything is airborne. So it really just depends on the state of the climate, and as was said, the patterns of people.
Okay, very good. So we have one final question left in this round. So Teddy, the pressure's on you to ask a question that will help you and Donalyn figure it out. So what's your question?
This is hard. Donalyn's right. So my question is, you know, like we keep hearing about wildfires, right? Here in the United States and in Australia and throughout the rest of the world. What is the proliferation of wildfires, particularly in the modern world? What is it telling us?
Okay, so let's start with Claire with the answer to this one.
I think it's telling us a lot of things. It's telling us that the climate is warming. It's telling us that it's getting hotter, and in places where it's already dry, it's getting drier. I think it's also telling us that our choices in the past have long-term impacts. For a very, very long time, wildfires were like put out at the smallest size, and that's not good for areas like California, my home state, where ecosystems were made to burn. And when you prevent fires, you get too many trees. And then when the big fire happens that you can't stop, it's unstoppable and it's even bigger than it was. So fires in the future both show us the past and will be a ramification of our decisions with regards to climate change.
Okay, so let's move on to Ashley.
Yes, sorry, can you say the question one more time?
No problem, Ashley. So what are wildfires today telling us?
I think wildfires are telling us today where we need to construct our properties and our homelands. I think when you look at where storms or where things happen, we can kind of know where to avoid. So this might mean a change of location geographically where we live, where we operate, because if we have areas that are prone to a certain type of weather, we might just need to not live there and not keep creating in those spaces and really change our routines as a human race so we can not only sustain the planet or listen to the planet, but also sustain life and not have disasters happen that can be very much avoided. So it really does deal with the placement and where we choose to live and habitate and all those things.
Okay. And for our final answer for this round, JL, what are your thoughts?
So in general, compared to even the most recent past, our forest fires that we're seeing in the US especially are both more frequent and like more intense. And these are two parameters that are used to consider global warming as well. It's certainly a contributing factor, we think, as Claire mentioned, the areas are getting a lot both hotter and drier, which points to the intensities of these fires. Once they start, they're becoming much harder and harder to stop. And so we're looking to, again, weather data to be able to like help predict these things more, and looking at patterns in weather data in the past to build models to predict how they're going to change in the future.
Okay, so there you have it, folks. We have all the answers that you need to figure out who researches what. So let's find out if our contestants gave it all away or if they were able to fool our guessers. In order to give Donalyn and Teddy a little bit of time to noodle on it, we're going to do our polls now. So if you've been following along at home, we're going to ask you to match the researcher. Looks like we have our first poll up. Who studies tomatoes? About halfway through the answers. Give it a little bit more time. We're not going to give it away just yet, but we want to get your feedback. Okay, if you want to submit your answer now, it's now or never, folks. Okay, so our results are in, and it looks like it's a very close race, but 50% of you think that JL is our tomato researcher, followed closely by Claire. So actually, you had one person who believed your tomato answers. So we will keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and launch our second poll. All right, and find out who is. All right, so who do you think studies cities? Okay, answers are coming in. Last few seconds. Okay, all right. So the results of this poll are actually at 10, is in the lead for cities, with Claire following at 5. So folks are pretty convinced that Ashley is our city researcher, and that leaves wildfires. So let's go ahead and run that poll and see who you believe studies wildfire. Okay, we have just a couple more seconds for responses. This one's a little bit close as well. So we have about 47% of people think that Claire is our wildfire expert. Okay, fabulous job. Thank you for playing along at home. Now, guessers, it is your turn to try and figure out who does what. So we would like you to tell us who you think researches what and what you're thinking, your reasoning is behind that. Let's start with, let's start with Teddy.
Sure. Thanks, Donalyn. I actually am going to agree with what I see in the polls. I'm going to guess that Ashley works with cities or maybe urban planning, and Claire works in agriculture in fires, and JL works in agriculture.
Okay. Were there any specific answers that led you to this conclusion? Was it the runway of science? Did you sashay down the runway of science to figure this out?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that Claire seemed to talk a lot about the very specifics about wildfires and the ways that they operate. It's dropping a lot of terms and knowledge.
Okay. All right. How about you, Donalyn? What do you think?
Teddy, I'm totally going to agree with you. I was hoping maybe you'd like say something that would make me change my mind, but I'm totally gonna agree. I'm gonna go tomatoes, JL, cities, Ashley, wildfire, Claire. But mine, I have no rhyme or reason. I'm going Claire and wildfire because you're from the West. You went hiking out West. There's a lot of wildfires out West. Like, honestly, you get great answers for everything. Ashley, I'm going cities because when you were talking about it, you got so close to the screen. You got so excited. So I was like, I feel like she's super pumped about cities. And JL, you started talking about model system, model species and things like that. And kind of just took it a step beyond. So that's what I'm going for.
Okay, I love it. I have to say, in our vast history of 3 episodes, this is the first time we've had full agreement from audience and both guessers. So let's see how you did. We'll have the true researchers. Let's see. We'll have them identify themselves and tell us what they do in 60 seconds or less. So for this one, let's start with Ashley. What do you research?
Okay, my major is design and research development for urban spaces. I'm focusing on minority communities specifically and just sustainability and how we can improve practices to sustain ourselves and our environment.
Awesome job. So they definitely figured you out. Okay, how about JL? Well, you want to tell us what your research is?
Sure. I study tomatoes in an analytical chemistry lab here at OSU. Specifically, I'm interested in plant chemistry or tomato chemistry. Tomatoes are very interesting chemically. And I study chemistry from like several angles. So the justification for like why I study tomatoes is because they're good for human health. We don't exactly know why, but we know they're good for human health. In concentration in some specific compounds called alkaloids, and they're blamed for causing bitterness in the tomato. So if these compounds are good for human health, we would want to breed to increase their content so people are eating more of them and getting more health benefit. But if they taste bitter, no one's going to eat them. So my goal is to smooth out the bitter causing compounds in these high alkaloid tomatoes. Is it the alkaloids, or is it one of the other tens of thousands of compounds that the tomatoes are making?
That's awesome. I do want to let you know you're kind of in and out, but we did get, I would say, 97% of what you said. So thank you for that. I have so many questions and so little time.
Good to know.
All right, so let's, Claire, tell us about your work.
So my degree is environment and natural resources, but I am ultimately a decision psychologist. I study how people make decisions, and in particular, I look at how fire managers make decisions to manage fires. They're big, huge, complex events that require, in some cases, thousands of people to manage them. And so in order to better understand how we could manage them more safely, more effectively, more in line with our long-term goals, it's absolutely critical to understand how the people managing those fires make decisions.
Okay. I think all of you have such fabulous areas of research, and you did a great job representing them because clearly everyone got you right, got the answers right. So there we are on our screen. You can see our 3 researchers and their areas of study. Okay.
I'm shocked. That was really hard, right, Donald?
It was super.
I'm fairly impressed with people's ability to answer questions that are unrelated.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I just, so update from the scorekeeper in the chat. Our current score after round 1 is everybody has 3 points. So congratulations. And it's time to move on to round 2, our second game of the evening. And this is called What Is It? Or What Is This? And for this round, we asked each of our contestants for a word related to their discipline. We're going to show you each word along with 3 definitions. One definition is correct. It was provided by the contestants, but the other 2 are completely made up. The objective for our guessers and for you at home is to select the correct definition to earn a point. So the first topic of interest will be tomatoes, and the word of the day in tomato science is metabolomics. And so I got to get really close for my old lady eyeballs. Do you believe that metabolomics is a way of structuring a technology company to analyze large data sets, the study of all small molecules in biological samples, or tools used to alter the DNA within something that I can't see. I'm sure you can see it at home. All right, so we have a poll, I believe, if my fabulous behind the scenes folks want to throw that up. Wait on the poll. Okay, I'm getting instructions from the secret behind the scenes folks. All right. Oh, now it's here. As you can tell, we are professional game show hosts. All right, so what is the definition of metabolomics? The thing that I couldn't see was the nucleus of the cell. Okay, answers are coming in. Folks are a little more shy in this round, I notice, a little slower to answer. Don't worry, we don't know who you are. We do know that a significant chunk of the audience is related to the people putting on this show, though. Okay, I'm going to give you 5 more seconds to submit your answer here. Okay, so we have a pretty strong winner here. We have metabolomics. The winner is the study of all small molecules in a biological sample. So let's see the results. No, our guessers are supposed to answer, right? If you haven't figured it out yet, this is the new section of our game tonight. So I'm going to now pivot and ask Donalyn, what do you think the definition is?
I'm also going to go with the audience on B, the study of all small molecules in a biological sample.
Okay. Teddy?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Donalyn, but my reasoning is, as an educator, I think that we often like to hide the answer in the middle of a multiple choice question.
Yes, spoken like a true former high school teacher. Yes, for sure. Okay, so once again, the audience and the guessers are in complete agreement. So let's move on and show the correct answer. Okay. The slides and I are not communicating well today, and that is okay. But you are correct. So the metabolomics is the study of small molecules in a biological sample. And now that we have gotten that awkwardness out of the way, let's move on to our second topic and term, which, as you got a sneak peek of, is cities. And our word is futuring. So you can see the submitted definition coming up on the screen. Is futuring engaging in activities and practices that focus on prescribing and predicting future trends from a design standpoint? Is it practice of designing buildings and spaces to last for a minimum of 50 years? Or is it design aesthetic? I'm sorry, it's like behind the name tag, so I can't really see it. Donalyn, can you see it? Design aesthetic that avoids classical elements in favor of modern elements. There you go. And you can also see those in the poll.
I like, Courtney, that we both went like this, though. Like we could actually see around that.
Yeah, like it's a curtain.
Fantastic.
All right, our answers are coming in. And as they are, I'm asking our guessers to think about what definition they believe is the correct one.
I can go here. I love these, and my thinking is, I think like B is sustainability, and C might be like modernism or like so sorry, modernity. So I'm gonna go with A.
Okay, modernity. I think that's a new word. It's like a combination of a few. Donalyn, how about you?
I have absolutely no idea if it's A or B, but I feel like the best way for me to at least tie Teddy at this point is to just keep going. So I'm going to go A. I know this is a place where I could like pull away, but I'm just not certain. So I'm going to go A also.
Okay. Oh, we had a great comment come in from the audience. Also, teachers, when in doubt, pick the longest answer. So thank you for that tidbit as well. And I just remembered how this game is supposed to be played. So I'm not going to tell you the answer. Ashley is, if she's still with us. I know she was moving around a little bit.
Yes, I'm here. Everybody totally is right. It's about predicting and prescribing trends for the future from a design standpoint. So yes, you're right.
All right, awesome. And now I'm going to go back and correct my mistake from before and say, Jordan, JL, why don't you tell us about metabolomics?
Oh, sure. It's one of the suites of omics scientists. Sorry, there's a siren going by here. I'll let it pass. Yeah, metabolomics is the goal is to look at all small molecules in a system. So in my case, I'm interested in looking at all small molecules in a tomato and looking at changes in those, or differences in those between tomatoes that are bitter and tomatoes that are not bitter. And what's interesting is that it's like you don't get names when you're looking at these molecules, you get masses. And so the goal then is to assign a name or a structure to a mass, which is like really the challenging part and the part that I'm coming up next in my research.
Is it like in when you discover a new species of animal, do you get to name it something ridiculous after like your own self or a band?
Yeah, exactly. There's like the formal name and then like the stage name of the molecule where you can get creative sometimes.
Nice. All right, and let's move on to our third topic now that I remember how the game is played, and that is wildfire. Our term is heuristic, and our 3 definitions are up on the screen. We're going to launch a poll. All right, so do you think heuristic means a burn technique designed to remove understory organic matter to reduce the likelihood of large fires, a shortcut or rule that enables fast but less accurate decision making, a computer model that allows decision makers to better anticipate fire behavior? All of these are long answers, so I'm not sure the teacher trick from the audience is going to work. All right, so if you're playing along at home, go ahead and submit your answers to our poll, and our guessers are going to think about what they think this word means. So I'm going to put Donalyn in the hot seat this time since she seems to just like to copy Teddy's answers. What do you think the definition of heuristic is?
I think this is, oh man, audience. Come on. Okay. I was definitely thinking between B or C just based on Claire saying that she was kind of in like decision science. So that's where I was going. Yeah, I'm gonna go with B. It seems like heuristic would kind of be like that fast and less accurate kind of, it just seems like that kind of word. I don't know.
All right.
I got no reasons.
Okay. Let's see. Teddy, are you going to go with Donalyn
Yeah.
or are you going to break away?
I think I'm going to agree with Donalyn on this, and only because I feel like heuristic to me sounds like an old-timey word, and I'm not sure like it would be used to describe a computer model, but that's there's no real thought behind that decision.
I like it. I like how you think. All right, so let's have Claire tell us what it really means.
So deciding that when in doubt, you're going to pick the longest answer is actually an example of a heuristic because it's a decision shortcut or a rule of thumb that enables you to make really fast decisions that might not necessarily be the most accurate.
Love it. Nice connection to our audience participation there. Very good. Okay, so that is it. That was round 2. And let's see if our scorekeeper has an update. For our audience who are keeping track of our old-timey scores, we are all tied at 6. Okay. All right, guys. So round 3 is going to be the tiebreaker, so to speak. And it is by far my favorite round in the game. So let's see. Let's take a quick 1-minute break so we can all kind of do our behind-the-scenes work and take a breather. And then we'll get started here in just a moment. I think we were supposed to have music, so this wouldn't be so awkward, but.
Cheers.
I can sing if you want. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh, that would be so great.
It's beginning to look a lot like, no, I'm just kidding. It's just,
Oh,
I'm just
seasonal and everything.
right.
All right. So that none of us break into song, let's go ahead and get started with round 3. This round is called Draw It. As I mentioned, it is by far my favorite round. It is our version of Pictionary meets Wheel of Fortune. So each contestant will be sent a research-ish phrase that is somehow related to their field of study. They will have 2 minutes to draw the phrase, the words that make up the phrase, using Zoom's annotate feature, which brings out the artist in all of us, really, if you ask me. As they're doing it, our two guessers are going to be yelling out their thoughts, Pictionary style, guessing what the drawings are so that they can put together the phrase. Okay, so just in case it's not clear, our contestants have not seen our statements before. They are our team's goofy interpretation of each person's research. So we're going to start with the topic of tomatoes, and JL is the first one up. Let's make sure. Have you received your phrase, JL?
Yes.
You have. Okay, so you're going to have 2 minutes. Since we don't have our theme music tonight, I'll just start a 2-minute timer on my phone. And with no further ado, go ahead and start drawing.
A flower. Tomato. A stem. A
Yeah,
leaf.
plant. Leaf.
Blank is blank.
If you get a word correct, it will magically appear above the drawing.
DNA. Helix. Double helix.
I'm setting a timer for you, Courtney. You want to?
Oh, okay. Very good. Oh, yeah, I like that. All right. DNA is correct. I think our typing into the, yes, there we
Okay.
go.
DNA is goofy. A cat.
Cool.
Cool.
Tongue.
Taste.
Silly.
Tasty.
Oh, plant DNA is
I don't know if it's plant. Is that plant? Tasty.
tasty. Oh yeah. Leaf DNA or
And DNA. is
tomato
tasty.
DNA.
Leaf.
Chlorophyll.
Oh. Was that it?
I think you got it. I'm waiting on our typer. I thought they got it.
It's because Teddy and
No?
I are rock stars right now. No, we didn't. Okay, not chlorophyll. DNA.
Good work, Alan. Oh, we didn't get it. Okay.
DNA. Tasty. Leaf.
Leaf, plant.
Green. Plant. Okay.
Yeah.
We totally nailed it, Teddy.
Nice work.
Totally nailed it.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Plant DNA is tasty. All right, good job. I was wondering what road we were going down with the cat, but then it turned into a tongue. I understood what you were getting at there. All right. Oh, scorekeeper wants to know who said plant first. I'm not sure. Audience, we're going to see if you have any feedback. Which of our guessers said the word plant first? Who gets the point? And while our audience members are thinking of that and letting us know, we're going to move on to round 2. And our round 2 drawer is Claire for the topic of wildfires. And we're sending her research-ish phrase now. Have you received it?
No, not yet.
Okay. That will be through a chat, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Did you get it?
I got it. Yeah.
All right. Our audience thinks Teddy said the word plant first.
I think it's a draw. I think Donald and I are equal on this.
In this together.
Yeah.
All right, Teddy, do you want to restart our timer?
Okay.
All right. Claire's drawing.
Person.
Yeah.
Wildfire
People.
manager.
Oh, cigarette. No person.
Fire.
Infinity.
Ah.
Wildfire. Wildlife.
No. People, not infinity.
No. People don't live forever.
Right.
Oh, people. Okay. People make
Happy. Cats. Wildfire. Smile.
Cats. People make the earth sad.
Sunshine.
Energy.
Oh.
People make the world a terrible place.
A, B.
People make bad choices. People make choices based on emotion. People make decisions.
Nice. Good choices.
Like,
Happy choices.
yeah.
Loud.
Yeah. People make choices based on happiness.
Good choices.
Good choices. Selfish choices.
MC. Singing.
Oh, selfish choices. Funny choices. Humorous choices.
Funny. Teddy, you nailed
Oh,
that.
I love it.
All right, good work. And I noticed we had some audience participation on that one too. So please do contribute as we as our guesters are throwing out their ideas. All right, awesome job. We have one more round. So we have.
I heard the
City.
Seinfeld theme pop up when you drew the microphone, Claire.
All right, so Ashley should be receiving her research-ish phrase as we're getting our game board ready. Oh, our scorekeeper says we are still tied. So this is the make it. We're also almost out of time because this has been so much fun. I can't believe an hour has passed. But this is the make it or break it round, really, if you want to not tie, although I get the feeling you do. Have you received your phrase, Ashley?
Yes, I have.
Okay, Teddy, you want to start our timer?
Good.
All right, let's go.
Blank, blank are for blank. Cities.
Buildings.
Yeah, buildings. Urban spaces. Cities. City planning. Earth. City.
Peace.
Garbage. City waste. City.
City.
City sidewalks.
Atmosphere.
City
Space.
are for people.
Stars. Keep it going, audience.
Are for humans. City.
Dancing. Happiness.
Walking. Populations. Many people.
Shapes. Community.
Communities, yeah. Organizations. Zoning. Cities.
Family. City. City.
Oh, no, I thought you were out of time. You have a minute.
No.
Sorry.
Actually, you got to tell us, but those definitely look like stars. The sky.
City skylines. City skylines.
City
Cities. City lights are for guidance.
Spaces.
City spaces. Oh, city spaces are for gathering. Are for people coming together. Are for community building.
Friends.
Friends, yeah. Families.
Families.
Yeah. Populations.
Parties. Everyone.
Experiences. City spaces for everyone. Oh yeah.
Oh, audience. Yes.
Oh, so good.
Lots of good help from the audience there. Was it enough to separate your scores? All right, great job, artists. Yay,
I'm so sorry, y'all.
It's so good. It's so good.
Great. That was, I don't know how you guys drew that on there. There's no chance. That was fantastic.
Spaces, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it's very hard.
I know, that's what I was trying to get at.
All right, so we have come to the end of 3 rounds of competition. Let's see who the winner is. We need some Jeopardy. We have a tie. All right. Equal points to Donalyn and to Teddy. Both of you will carry forward with Guess Who bragging rights and our love and admiration, as will the audience, who also did a fabulous job throughout the show. This is usually where we would transition to the Q&A section, but we've been having so much fun. We haven't had time. We won't have time. So if you have a question you want to ask our contestants tonight, if you can go ahead and just type that into the Q&A or the chat, we will ask them after the show and post that to the STEM Impact Collaborative website. So please feel free to add your questions. But if you will bear with us for just 2 or 3 moments longer, I would like to let Donalyn and Teddy each ask a quick question because they haven't really gotten to drill down into the research topic. So Teddy, do you have a question about any of the 3 topics that you'd like to ask?
I don't. I learned so much tonight. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. How about you, Donalyn?
I just have a random question for you, Jill. I just really want to know if you've ever written any comedy poems about tomatoes.
I've started one, but she's not finished.
Okay.
All right.
That's awesome.
We might have to see if we can talk him into sharing some of his comedy poetry for the Guess Who audience at some point. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for attending tonight's show. It was so much fun. I want to thank, first and foremost, the Ohio State Energy Partners who help support the STEM Impact Collaborative and our virtual programming, our fabulous guesters, Donalyn Roxy and Teddy Chao, our wonderfully playful contestants, Ashley Brooks, Claire Rapp, and J.L. Hartman. You all did a fabulous job. We want to acknowledge the various departments and units at Ohio State University that contribute to the STEM Impact Collaborative. And I want to specifically thank all of the folks behind the scenes who are making this program run as smoothly as it did tonight. And that is Jason Cervenek, Wayne Slingman, Monica Delgado, Catherine O'Brien, and Cynthia Cannon. So we hope that you will join us for future programming. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, all. I'm looking forward to seeing the 3 of you collaborate on decision making and tomato chemistry in urban spaces. I think that's going to be some amazing work.
And if nothing else, if things don't go well, we can throw the tomatoes at people.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Teddy.
Thank you so much. You all did fabulous.
Bye.